So as we get into our final video on the first act of Darkseid War, I wanted to take some time to answer a few questions that you all had. In the comments of the last video and the videos before it, some of you had expressed some confusion about Volthoom, Jessica Cruz, and the difference between her and the Green Lantern. And so what we're going to do here is run over the changes Geoff Johns has made with the origins of the universe, and then wrap around into Volthoom, Jessica Cruz, and the Ring of Volthoom itself. So if you recall my video on the Guardians of the Universe, we had talked about the origin of the universe as it was written during the Crisis on Infinite Earths. In that story, we were told that during the Guardians' early years, one of their members named Krona had used the technology of the time to look back to the point of the positive matter universe's creation. As a result, his actions spawned the formation of the antimatter universe where evil reigned supreme, and while this act forced the Guardians to banish Krona and form the Manhunters and eventually the Green Lantern Corps to safeguard the positive matter universe from the introduction of evil, it also saw the formation of the Anti-Monitor, who was then used as a plot device for the Crisis on Infinite Earths story. Now, where this was a standard origin from Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985 going forward, as part of the New 52 relaunch, Geoff Johns came back and retconned this. During the events of Wrath of the First Lantern from 2013, we're told that when Krona used his device to look at the origin of the universe, rather than his actions resulting in the formation of the antimatter universe and the Anti-Monitor, instead, his observation of the universe's creation brought the arrival of a mysterious being named Volthoom. Now, the origin of Volthoom is actually unknown and may be explained at some point in the future by Geoff Johns or another writer. But with Volthoom's arrival came knowledge of the emotional spectrum of willpower, rage, love, fear, compassion, avarice, hope, life, and death. Now, where each of these emotions would go on to form the basis behind their own respective Lantern Corps, because Volthoom had demonstrated the ability to tap into and control the entire emotional spectrum, he had fashioned his own ring called the Ring of Volthoom and stood as the first Lantern. However, because he began to demonstrate a love for tormenting the souls of all living things combined with his ability to manipulate reality, the Guardians became fearful of the danger he represented and locked Volthoom away, wiping all knowledge of his existence from history. Now, where the Wrath of the First Lantern storyline centered on his return, the conclusion of the story saw his defeat, but also saw his ring being sent into the Earth 3 continuity where it found that universe's version of Hal Jordan. Now, what DC did here was establish that the spirit of Volthoom remained inside the ring and fed off the fear of its wielder while simultaneously allowing them to use its power. As a result, for all intents and purposes, the ring is the same as a Green Lantern ring regarding its abilities, but differs in that it will eventually kill its user. However, when the Anti-Monitor began making battle plans for his war against Darkseid and attacked the Earth 3 universe, the superpowered inhabitants of that reality fled, which kicked off the Forever Evil storyline. Now, during Forever Evil, when Harold Jordan and the Crime Syndicate fought against Lex Luthor and the Injustice League, Sinestro had battled Jordan and in the process ripped his arm off. As a result, Jordan lost his ability to use the ring, at which point it began to search for another host, eventually finding and attaching itself to Jessica Cruz. Having said all that, and regarding this final video of the Darkseid War proper, as we get into this, we actually open up with Wonder Woman's story of Gelos, the god of laughter. Now, I'd like you to keep this particular moment in mind because the end of the story will be a major source of debate among readers. But what Johns does here is coincide the story of Gelos with the appearance of the Joker. What we're told is that according to Wonder Woman's mother, there was one Greek god she hated above all others, and that this god was Gelos. The reason for her hatred was rooted in the fact that rather than being rational, albeit vengeful like Zeus, Ares, or even Athena, Gelos took enjoyment in the pain and suffering of others, and while none of them could see him, he always existed in the background, laughing at the misery of the Amazonians' suffering and the loss of their warriors in battle. The reason for Johns providing us with the emphasis on Gelos comes with the fact that the identity of the Joker seems to haunt Batman. Now, something I want to point out here is that Johns is not explicitly telling us that the Joker is the personification of the Greek god of laughter. This is simply an instance where we're being told that the underlying theme of Batman's focus is the Joker and who he truly is. Now, picking up with Bruce himself along with Hal Jordan, who has accompanied him on his journey, we join the two with their arrival in the Earth 3 continuity. What Batman tells us is that when the Anti-Monitor had laid waste to this planet, he had fed on the energies of the planet's inhabitants on his journey to Earth in preparation for his battle against Darkseid. In addition to this, the basis behind Batman and Jordan being here is due to the fact that Bruce is attempting to retrace the steps of Anti-Monitor to the point of his origin. However, the discussion between the two is also of incredible importance regarding Hal Jordan himself. According to Jordan, ever since Batman came into possession of the Mobius chair, he has effectively lost his humanity and instead seems to view himself as above everyone else. Now, if I can inject my own opinion here, I would say that the depiction of Batman here only highlights what was already there. Throughout his history, Bruce has always been written in a manner that depicted him as being more intelligent and capable than the rest of the League, and even within those of his own Bat family. The fact that he's now in possession of knowledge regarding all things past and present simply just throws this concept into sharp relief. However, for Bruce, he effectively makes the case that the arrogance he displays is not without reason. Using his access to the knowledge stored within the chair combined with his own experience, Batman forces Hal Jordan to see the truth of his character and that his life has never amounted to anything. Instead, Hal was simply bumbling along as a test pilot until he stumbled upon the ring. In addition to this, his role as a Green Lantern has been tumultuous at best, with events like Emerald Twilight seeing him destroy the Lantern Corps and kill the Guardians of the Universe. Furthermore, because Batman states that the ring is the true hero and that Hal Jordan would be incapable of being anyone of significance without it, his life outside of the Lantern Corps has no real value and instead is quite literally devoid of anyone or anything of meaning. Now, this is something that I found particularly interesting and is actually something I want to focus on for a few minutes. While the ring is capable of incredible power, the ring itself is not a hammer or a random object that can simply be wielded by anyone. The Green Lantern ring requires willpower, and the fact that Hal is able to wield it to such a degree and become one of the most celebrated Green Lanterns in history is a testament to both his strength of character and ability to endure hardships and temptation that would normally engulf others. And so with Hal Jordan ending the argument for the purpose of simply continuing on with their journey, Batman reveals that in order for the two to locate the origin of the Anti-Monitor and learn the answers to their questions, they have to travel to the antimatter universe and the planet of Cord. Now, transitioning back to the battle between Anti-Monitor and Darkseid, the conflict is brought to us in a manner that shows that the Justice League are not considered a threat of any real magnitude. With Cyborg commenting on this fact, the battle shifts its focus to Grail. What this tells us is that the war between the forces of Anti-Monitor and Darkseid are quite literally all hands on deck, and that the actions of the Justice League are tantamount to throwing a cup of water on a burning house. With Grail doing battle against Calabac, we learn that Darkseid's pursuit of Grail wasn't for the purpose of killing her, and that instead, he had simply intended to capture her alive. What we also learn here is that where Calabac taunts Grail with his intention to torture her in unimaginable ways, including gouging her eyes out, Grail turns the tables on him by blasting him with her Omega Beams and incinerating his eyes in his own sockets. As a result, this brief action was enough to allow Anti-Monitor to temporarily gain the upper hand against Darkseid. Now, moving to Apocalypse, Johns continues to close out the lingering plot threads in quick fashion by focusing on Superman and Lex. Something I'd like you to notice here is that when the question is asked by Lex as to what happened to Clark, his initial response is that he's simply been recharged by the solar pits of Apocalypse. But with his physical form changing along with the introduction of a cruel demeanor, the indication here seems to be that the pits have corrupted Superman, turning him into an evil version of his normal self. This appears to be evidenced by the fact that Clark begins to taunt Lex. During their conversation, Superman states that using his super senses, he can tell that Lex is scared of the current situation, and the fact that if Superman chose to attack him, there's likely nothing he could do. Furthermore, where Lex states that he will fight if it comes down to it, Clark makes the case that the only reasons Lex has ever defeated him in the past was because he was simply holding back. Now, moving back to the battle of the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid, we get an emphasis on three different aspects of the battle. The first comes with Wonder Woman and Grail, followed by Scott-Free and Kanto, as well as Jessica Cruz. Now, where the first two are pretty straightforward with no real room for discussion, I want to take some time to focus on Jessica. Because Jessica is in possession of the ring, which is inhabited by the spirit of Volthoom, she's taunted by Volthoom with the statement that if she chooses to stay and fight, that her fear will overcome her and that she'll die in the process. However, for her character, everything that she's experienced has led up to this moment, requiring her to face her fear and the fact that she may die. What I mean here is that prior to her acquisition of the ring, Jessica was someone who constantly ran away from her problems and never truly faced them head on. Where this situation would normally be an instance where she would simply run, instead, she chooses to stay and battle her fear of dying and the unknown that comes with it. In doing so, she's able to unleash the full power of Volthoom, but the entire situation is actually short-lived, with Darkseid summoning the Black Racer. Now, this tidbit of knowledge won't actually be added until the first issue of Darkseid War Act 2 with issue number 45, but in order to make everything make sense, we're going to throw it in now. What we're told is that within the New 52 continuity, when Darkseid had established Apocalypse, he had harnessed an aspect of death, but because the only way to communicate and control it was to force it to bond with a host, Darkseid used several individuals over the course of time to serve as a host and have the entity carry out his wishes. As such, within the context of the story, Darkseid has summoned the Black Racer for the purpose of killing the Anti-Monitor. From here, the story provides us with a kind of long shot of Batman and Hal Jordan along with the battle on Earth, while simultaneously establishing the origin of the Anti-Monitor. What we learn is that where the Anti-Monitor hails from the antimatter universe, at some point he who created the Mobius chair for the purpose of observing and recording the origin of the antimatter universe itself. However, when this happened, he inadvertently released the anti-life equation, a source of energy that allows its wielder to control the wills of others. As a result, the equation bonded itself to the Anti-Monitor, who in turn developed the power to bend others and force them to do his will. Using this ability, the Anti-Monitor stops Barry Allen in his tracks, takes control of the Black Racer, and forces the two to bond together, transforming Barry Allen into the God of Death. And so as the first act comes to an end, the Anti-Monitor uses this version of the Flash to quite literally punch a hole through Darkseid, killing him in the process. Now, regarding what I said earlier in this video about keeping the beginning in mind, something Wonder Woman says as the story closes is that she was able to hear laughter. Now, this particular statement is a major source of contention among fans, and the reason why is because some claim that Johns is telling us that the Joker is laughing, while others say this is not the case. In truth, until Johns comes out and tells us one way or another, we don't really know. But in addition to posting any questions you might have regarding what we've discussed here, let me know what you think. Is the Joker the god of laughter, or is Gilo simply a completely separate entity unto himself? And with that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.